Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this evening's session is over. Just a few introductions. My name is George Baird. I'm a Chartered Town Planner. I'm the Inspector appointed by the Secretary of State to hold this inquiry and to determine the appeal. On my right is Mr. Simons of Council, representing the appellants. My left is Mr. Fosdick, KC, representing the local planning authority. And at the end of the table is Mr. Stinchcombe, KC, representing the Save Weekley Woods Action Group. Now, this evening is an opportunity for you to make your representations. I've got a list of the names of those who want to speak. There are some 39 individuals, so we're going to have to restrict the amount of time that each of you get. I'm going to start at 3 minutes, and I'll give you an indication when you're very close to that to let you know that your time is almost up.
Is there a problem with your microphone? You can't hear it. It's very along with correctly. Let's see. We can do this one. It's got a bit of interference.
Version 2. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can't hear. You can't hear at all. Or
Very bright. Very bright.
right. So well,
It's really control over the speakers.
right, we'll try again. Can you hear? Can you hear that? So let's press on. You're going to speak. It's going to be a 3-minute limit. I'll give you an indication of when your time is almost up. If someone who speaks before you says something similar to what you wish to say, there's no need to repeat it. Indicate that you support whatever the previous speaker has said. And if there's anything in addition to that, then please make your representation. If you're reading from a prepared statement, could you give the council a copy, give it to the council, or give them a copy, and then it can be added to the inquiry documents. So I'd appreciate it if it's not a public meeting, it's not a music hall, so please don't interject when anyone is speaking, and as I say, it's not a music hall, so don't clap, please. You should be able to get through the evening fairly straightforward. I've got a list of names, so I'm going to just take them as they are on the list. And the first one is Miss Siddington. Miss Siddington. There's a microphone down at the end of that table there.
Should I project? Or would you prefer to use the microphone?
I think it would be better if you use the microphone.
Hello. I'm a local parent. No.
He's a speaker.
It's a speaker. What would you like me to do? Yeah. Shall I speak like this? Is that okay? Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a local parent, runner, dog owner, and I run a local forest school nursery, which is about half a mile from the proposed site. The current plans really fly in the face of the aspirations of our local young people and of policy 36 of the Joint Core Strategy, which states in paragraph 1058, the development should deliver employment and training opportunities to help build a more diverse, dynamic and self-reliant economy. The current plan is designed with the maximisation of profit in mind. Cheap buildings to be filled with cheap workers to make money for huge national companies, not the inward investment that the Joint Core Strategy asks for. Most days I speak to parents at nurseries who have stories from their last visit to Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow. What comes across is how they love the scale of the place. The wood and meadow are one space to the people and the animals who use them. Dividing them into two separate things to try and lessen the meadow's value is calculating and wrong. The Joint Core Strategy states how the development needs to enhance recreational opportunities. This really can't be achieved with a few paved access paths and some gardening. This wild open space needs protecting. I'd just like to speak about some things that have changed since the Joint Core Strategy was adopted. As we know, this was in 2016, which was a very different world. Since 2016, our council, along with 570 others, have declared a climate emergency. I am so worried about what future awaits my own children and those I teach. To me, the tarmacking and worse of a meadow that sequesters carbon, enriches biodiversity and provides clean air just because of a local plan that was adopted 7 years ago and is currently under review feels not just ludicrous but ecocidal. If we really are obliged to continue as if the Joint Core Strategy has been written in stone, then in light of the climate emergency, don't we have a responsibility to hold any development to the strictest possible definitions of that strategy to ensure that any development truly does benefit local people as much as possible? As I have acknowledged, there must be a balance between the need for industry and employment and the need for environment and well-being. Considering the upcoming increase in biodiversity net gain regulations and many councils declaring a climate emergency, surely this balance has tipped and much more focus needs to be given to the latter. This can be achieved here. With reasonable compromises, a development that meets the true spirit of the Joint Core Strategy, rather than a twisting of the words and definitions within it, is possible. Thank you.
Have you given the council a copy of your? Bill Bird. Nicola Speed.
Echoing the previous speaker's comments about the enjoyment as a runner, I'm a member of a running community, and most of us have Weekley Hall Wood as a regular running route. It's a much nicer environment than running on the pavements through the town or on country roads where traffic can get too close. When running by myself or with others from the group, we always see families out walking their dogs, riding bikes, or enjoying nature. It's almost like having a country park right on the edge of town, and it's also accessible from my village. And I've been enjoying Weekley Hall Wood since my children were young, taking them there for bike rides. It's so much safer than the roads. And as a scout leader, where we took cubs and scouts on bike rides and outdoor challenge activities in the wood, which they very much enjoyed. I'm not opposed to warehouses per se. In my day job, I work in distribution, and my current role is concerned with network capacity. We actually recently opened a new warehouse, but on a brownfield site that was previously a power station. At the height of the pandemic, due to shops being closed and the increase in online ordering, all of our distribution centres worked at full capacity, and finding new sites was difficult, and there was a real demand for warehousing. But in the last year or two, that picture has very much changed. In some parts of the country, there is an overcapacity. You may have read of large companies like Amazon that are now divesting themselves of warehouses. Therefore, I question whether there is a real need for new warehouses on this valued land. It would be tragic to lose irreplaceable natural habitat and an area that so many people enjoy for warehouses that could sit empty. And if there is such a need, what other locations have been explored that would have less impact on our precious environment? Thank you. Would you like this?
Sabina Basu. Councillor Lee.
I serve as a councillor, a Northern Pants councillor for Labour for Kettering. One point has not yet been mentioned before in this discussion. Only last week, the Northern Pants Air Quality Officer, Cllr Longman, said at the EAP Executive Advisory Panel for Sustainable Communities that the highest levels of nitrogen dioxide pollution in Northern Pants have been measured in Kettering. That is not surprising. The bigger roads around Kettering get gridlocked at peak times. There are concerns across all political parties that the infrastructure around Kettering is not keeping up with the relentless drive to build and develop. And since green infrastructure is being destroyed in the process, we are experiencing a worrying spiral of air pollution, gridlock, and fewer green spaces. Members of my party, the Labour Party, have been involved in the Safe Weekley Hall Wood campaign from the start because the importance of the site is abundantly clear. You can hear my accent. I'm from Belgium originally. I have been a conference interpreter for the Dutch language for large companies and European institutions for 20 years. Now, shareholders in European institutions and European citizens appear to be much wiser to the need to cutting CO2 emissions, to transform to a greener economy, and to avoid covering soil in concrete because of the risk of flooding. Not long after I was elected at Kettering Borough Council in 2015, I remember a consultation on the Northern Pants Joint Core Strategy, which was adopted in July 2015. And when I checked out the figure on page 34, it looked to me that the number 14, referring to allocated employment land at Kettering North, was just a small piece of land on the edge of the area, since part of the label with number 14 was covering Weekley Wood Lane in figure 12. The size of the plot concerned was not entirely clear, let alone the ecological value. But safeguards appear to have been built into the joint core strategy, and it was never agreed for the 8 warehouses to be built there. The strategy is 7 years old and it's out of date. I serve at the moment on the EAP Executive Advisory Panel for Planning Communities and other Planning Transformation Board at the July 2023 meeting of the Planning Communities meeting on the subject of a proposed development called Kettering Energy Park with a large amount of B8 on the site. The councillor said that we need to consider how to deal with this sort type of applications because the cumulative impact of development and the need for a balanced economy is important. That's taken from the minutes. There has been an alarming level of greenwashing by developers where new trees planted just did not get watered and died. Bushes did not get planted. The council simply does not have the staff to enforce any measures. And that is relevant. That is relevant because it's known now and it should not be dismissed because it means that the green infrastructure is always on a losing end. The meadow is perfect where it is, within reach of the community. I refute the premise that it can be recreated elsewhere and score the same effect that it has now. Weekley Hall Wood is extremely valuable to the community. This place, this case, this site is unique. I have not seen any other campaign that attracted so many people. So it deserves unique recognition. By this application being rejected, or the allocation being drastically reduced in scale, in line with the original intention. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shackleton.
Good evening. I welcome the opportunity to come along today and spend a minute or two to represent a lot of people who cannot attend as a witness, as I'll explain. I'm Dr. Clive Shackleton. I've been a family doctor GP in Kettering since 1991 when I moved with my young family. In the early years, I was exploring the area and I came across the Weekley Wood, Meadow and Wood area, cycling my bike exploring. It was really during the COVID-19 lockdown months that the area came to the fore. In our allowed exercise time, I would cycle up and explore the meadow paths and woodland, along with many other local residents. As a GP, I see many patients with significant mental health issues, which became worse during the lockdown months. Many times I recommended these patients went to visit the tranquil meadow and woods as part of their strategy for managing their symptoms. I call it a social prescription. Many people still suffer significant mental health issues and unable to attend this talk, so I am their voices. The feedback I've received from patients is incredible and inspiring. Many stories told how the visit reignited happy childhood memories, exploring the area and running wild and free as young kids. They'd forgotten how this had made them feel, and they had forgotten the previous Duke of Lacoon's promise that if Kettering people cared for the meadow and wood, then the Duke would care for the meadow and wood for the people of Kettering. This is a promise that the current Duke is threatening to break. When I heard there was a plan to build over this old meadow, I was and still am appalled. If warehouses are needed, which I hear is not the case anyway, due to thousands of square metres of unoccupied space locally, then this is not the place to build them. Surely they should be sited close to the A14, where there is already development in National Isham, incidentally on large floodplains that are going to flood in the next few years. Not miles from the national and international road connections and in virgin countryside in what is effectively Kettering's own country park. If these warehouses are built on Weekley Meadow, a massive increase in freight transport, circumnavigating Kettering to and from the A14 would have a significant impact on the town's air quality. And we have many patients in the town with marked chronic respiratory cardiac diseases whose physical health would significantly put at risk. Also, we would lose forever a peaceful mental health healing place. This will be denied for future generations of as yet unborn Kettering citizens. I don't think they'll ever forgive us. If I could just finish with my 10-year-old grandson, Rowan. I asked him to write his feelings. This is from Rowan. I'm going to be here longer, and I can't imagine what life would be like without the meadow and woods. So please save these beautiful woods.
Good evening, Inspector. I've been exploring Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow for just over 3 years, using the area for physical recreation, dog walking, nature observation and homeschooling visits with my 3 younger children during COVID-19 lockdown periods. This area offered me an educational and emotional lifeline to our family and many others during this period. I've also given nature lessons to multiple Scouts groups and local primary school Year 6 class. One thing is for sure, I'm always amazed at the interaction and excitement from the children, as we know, as we show them how to find and see the creatures that call this place home. They always left knowing more than when they came and with smiles on their faces. As well as these, the community group Save Weekley Hall Wood have had many families attending our fun days, again immersing themselves in the natural surroundings, meeting new people and forming community relationships. During my nature observations, I've seen and taken photographs of many species of animals during my visits. Grey-crested smooth newts, common lizards, stinging grizzled skippers, roe, fallow, muskjack deer, woodcock, redwing, fieldfare, lesser redpoll, meadow pipit, wren, robin, lapwing, herons, foxes with cubs, badgers, mice, kites, buzzards, to kestrels. Over the winter season, as you step foot through the gate on Weekley Wood Lane, a proposed widened concrete junction to be, you can normally see overwintering stone chats picking around the meadow area and the kestrel looking for its next meal. Wrens chattering warning signals as you pass their favourite blackthorn or hawthorn. Robins on every turn greeting you with the melancholy songs. This is where you start to feel the benefits of escaping our fast-paced and grey concrete worlds that we spend most of our time in. Most notably are the sheer number of bats in the evening from spring to autumn. I've counted over 90 passes in one evening of common picture trails from a static location of what we now call Bat Corner. This area is included in proposed development. I've spent 2 full summers observing their routes and feeding areas, witnessing them transiting to and from the area, using the hedgerows and handrailing the wood lines as their routes in and out from the Brambleside estate where they roost. Again, counting over 90 bats heading into the area from 3 routes with one of our surveys last year. My eldest son Toby is currently studying countryside and land management at Malvern College, and this is due mainly to the natural beauty and wonder that we have witnessed over the last few years of Weekley Hall Wood. And I would like to think that this area can be kept as much to influence future children and young adults to find careers in the protection and maintenance of our dwindling natural landscape. This will not be achieved by building more warehouses over these areas. Having served in the Royal Air Force for the last 23 years and as a regular company servant full-time service, the benefits of having access to such an amazing area of green space is almost unquantifiable. Hopefully what I've mentioned so far has helped quantify it. Being able to get outside and see all the things I've seen has had a positive effect on my mental and general health and helped me realise that we are not living in the environment, but we are part of it. Please do not allow this development to happen. The area is too important to lose.
It's really great that I've come up to the doctor actually, because I'm speaking to you this evening with a personal account of how this proposed development will affect my health and my well-being, and try to explain how the woodland and meadow has had such a positive impact on my life. It's very apt that I'm talking to you today, as tomorrow marks the end of the 12th annual Crohn's Colitis Awareness Week, something that unfortunately does not get a lot of exposure, but affects so many people. In 2005, at the age of 23, I had major emergency abdominal surgery in which I had a large section of my bowel removed. Shortly after, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. an autoimmune disorder which affects my entire digestive system. The cause of inflammatory bowel disease flare-ups are varied, but they are principally linked to environmental factors such as stress, poor diet, poor air quality and pollution. After being in and out of hospital on a regular basis for 11 years, as well as extensive time off work, I tried very hard, made considerable changes to my lifestyle. I changed my job to a less stressful one. I changed my diet significantly, but principally, I started a very regular regime of exercise. This started out as doing park runs on a Saturday morning, but generally progressively increased to running more regularly during the week, especially around Meadow and Woodland. For me, running is relaxing, running is mindful, and running is an escape. Running has become such a huge part of the management and remission of my Crohn's symptoms. It cannot be a coincidence that since I started running around this beautiful woodland in 2016, I haven't been admitted into hospital since. Being able to access a local green space to run around in is so important to me. Running around Weekley Hall Wood is key to my recovery and allows me to be a productive member of the community and economy. Previous to this, I was a drain on the welfare and health system due to my extended stays in hospital. Due to poor air quality and the risks this trigger my Crohn's, I cannot and I will not run around the town and busy roads. I live in All Saints Ward, so I can easily run to the wood for some exercise. Its locality has been very useful to me when training for 2 half marathons, which I completed in support of Crohn's and Colitis UK. The proposed industrial and commercial development in the north of Kettering will have such a huge impact on me and many others as the users of this beautiful resource. I believe that the wood of Flower Meadow have such a great value to the people of Kettering, but that value is not necessarily a commercial one. It's the value on people's well-being. If this green space is lost and the space is less attractive to run round, I'll have to think of alternatives. This would most likely involve having to drive up to Weekley Park, Chester Country Park or Brixworth Country Park. This would not only cost me more money and time, but would mean more traffic, more emissions, and me contributing to poor air quality in and around Kettering, which, let's not forget, is the reason I need the green space in the first place. But it is not just me. Strava heat maps, which show popular running routes, throng the area around the wood and meadow. Weekley Hall Wood is used by many hundreds of runners, but as well as the wonderful community of runners, there are the dog walkers and the cyclists, all having to travel somewhere else for their daily exercise and escape from the crazy busy world that we live in. I'll just finish up by saying that if anyone has had the misfortune to live with a serious chronic medical condition, then they will know that there are some very dark days that one has to deal with. Luckily for me, I have found a way to deal with it, and it's thanks to being able to retreat to this wonderful, peaceful, local green space. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My name is Stevie. I love Weekley Wood. My love for this local green space started at the time of this COVID pandemic. My dad, Glendon, and my little brother are all vulnerable, so we couldn't see anyone for ages. The only thing I could do was spend time at the woods with my family. Every day after I completed my online schoolwork, we would take Emily, our dog, and to get some exercise and explore the woods, which is only a short walk from our house. My mum would tell me stories about her childhood. She told me so many things about nature. I loved every minute. After COVID, we continued to explore the woods. I've had so many amazing times there, building dens, swinging hammocks, doing crafts, singing, dancing, making lanterns that we paraded through the woods while listening to stories. so many people of all ages at the woods that have become friends. When I found out the Duke of the Blue wanted to destroy our beautiful woods and meadow, I cried. I couldn't understand why he wanted to do this, just to fill it with these massive, ugly metal warehouses. It was explained to me warehouses had to be built to create jobs for local people. However, I still can't see why here on our meadow, blocking our woods, I could not just accept this. I wanted to show my support somehow. I have a voice, so I felt I must speak tonight for all the people that want to save the woods and meadow, especially the other children of Kettering, because we have never been asked what we want. What we want is our Weekley Wood and our meadow to remain. Thank you.
Evelyn Clements.
I'm Stevie Ann Clements. My name was just down in case she didn't speak, but she did really well. Thank you.
You're very proud. Bruce Doria. Julia Thorley.
Oh, that's my words this evening come from my heart, and while I appreciate that planning decisions must be made on legal grounds, there is surely some space for common sense and compassion. Although I'm a recent emigrant in Northamptonshire, having been here a mere 40 years, my children were born here. They both explored the woods on foot and on their bikes, and now our whole family enjoys the physical and mental health benefits of the natural environment there. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that on the dark days, Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow has been a lifesaver. Perhaps you're not swayed by an emotional response, but let's not forget that while you're here in an official capacity, you surely have a place in your own life that is special. How would you feel if a warehouse were to be built on this? There has been talk about the creation of thousands of jobs. Well, I worked for over 20 years for the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, and as such I'm familiar with the skill shortages that prevail throughout the entire sector. The developers claim they will be creating jobs. No, they will be creating vacancies that will not be filled. The traffic considerations too have been explored. Imagine yourself standing in our meadow or in your own special piece of the countryside, listening to the birds. Now imagine how difficult this would be against the background of the rumble and disturbance of lorries and warehouse activity, not to mention the chaos that would occur during the construction phase. Now I could wax lyrical about the wonderful opportunity that this situation offers the Duke to put right in part the atrocities carried out by his ancestors during the Newton Rebellion. However, I doubt you would be swayed by such rhetoric. But what a lovely gesture it would be if the Duke were to give this land back to the town, perhaps as a country park. There is no doubt we are in the midst of a climate emergency and should be preserving our natural world. We have heard recently that England will be getting a new national park as part of a government set of nature pledges to give greater access and protection to the countryside. So let's accommodate that intention here. It would be so much better a legacy than concrete and steel. We have of necessity been subject to a lot of legalese and jargon during these proceedings. Mitigation has joined the list of my most hated words. And if we decipher that other phrase, impact on biodiversity, we will see that it means destroying plants and killing wildlife. There are many reasons not to allow this development, but I cannot think of a single reason to let it go ahead. I've heard it said that there is no room for morals in planning decisions. Prove me wrong, please, by dismissing the Cllr's application. Thank you.
Shepherd. Liane Robinson.
So my story starts 30 years ago. When I was pregnant, we were planning on moving to London. And I saw a little tot trying to learn to ride a bike on a very busy city street. That's when I decided I didn't want to bring our children in, our child in the system. We placed in Kettering where my husband was based, and we had brought our children up and they enjoyed Weekley Woods many times. They learned to ride their bikes. Whenever there was family evenings, the first place they would say, let's go to the woods. It was a place to go. They've now moved away, some of them, and when they come back, they say, we're going for a walk up the woods, Mum. And we now go up there with our grandchildren, and it's next generation. Kettering is surrounded, when you come in, with massive warehouses. Every single destination you come into from Kettering is warehouses. Our children, the next generation, if we lose this place, we'll never have it again. Once it's gone, that's it. And it will be such a loss because too many children now don't know what it is like to go and play in the woods. And for the ones that are here this evening that are passionate enough to have spoken out, there are so many in Kettering that have got the same voice, and we do not want to leave this wood. We do not need more factories or warehouses. Maybe the empty ones could be worked on first to fill and worry about those, and let us keep our woods. Let us keep what is Kettering's treasure. We love this place and we do not want to lose it.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts.
Try and keep it brief. I've been living in Kettering and using that area. I don't think it was always called Weekley Woods. We've been using it for about 50 years. Our 6 children have been using it for the last 30 years or so. And the loss of it is just unthinkable. The one point my wife didn't mention was the fact that our youngest, who's 21, is high functioning autistic. And during the lockdown period, it's the one thing that really helped him with his mental health. The other 2 points, just to be brief, I spend a lot of time in warehouses up and down the country. I do electrical testing. I can tell you a couple of things. First of all, they don't employ many people at all on warehouses. It's just not needed. Secondly, if you go into, in this county, north of the county, go into Corby, there are ample, empty, large warehouses and brownfield sites where warehousing or similar sort of building could be knocked down. The only point here, of course, is that the Duke of Cllr doesn't own those and won't be creating any profits from them. But I think we should be using what's available before we destroy what's precious. And that's what's being proposed here.
Nathan Robertson. That was, oh, sorry. Mr. Agostino.
Good evening, everybody. As a registered nurse for 24 years, individual and population health are central to my professional interests. However, health and well-being also impacts my own personal and family circumstances, and therefore I feel it's important to express my objections to the development of Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow. The impact of health needs to be considered from the initial stages of policy development to ensure that policies developed are not harmful to health. Policy decisions around health too often focus on treating ill health and the structure, organisation and funding of healthcare. Health services are important but are not what drives health. The conditions in which people are conceived, born, grow, live, work and age are the prime determinants of future health. and I would argue that Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow fall into these positive health drivers. The holistic health benefits of nature are well documented. However, there is now concrete evidence that points to the benefit for physical health. For example, the lowering of high blood pressure and allergies, mental health, for example, the lowering prevalence of depression and anxiety, and social well-being outcomes for people who spend time in nature. Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow provide all of these points for thousands of local people. The bats, the butterflies, insects that ultimately can contribute to its mini ecosystem, and the fauna and the inhabits the environments of Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow all play a part in mine and my community's holistic health and well-being. Deforestation and land development are cited reasons for the increase in emerging and re-emerging viral infectious diseases like pandemics. The industrial development of Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow will result in increased risk of these occurrences. As a healthcare worker that worked within COVID positive wards in 2020 and 2021, I know the full negative impact that viruses and pandemics have on communities, individuals and families. For the benefit of our health and future generations' health and well-being, please consider the following points outlined when deciding the fate of Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Farrow.
Evening all. I first encountered Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow when I moved to Kettering 4 years ago, and ever since then it's become pretty much a weekly fixture for myself, particularly in the summer months where I spend a lot of time there exploring, reading, and also writing and playing music. I've seen lots of things while I've been up there in my time. As people have already mentioned, animals. I've been startled by a deer who was just a start to see me. And one of the cool things is while I'm there to get some peace and quiet, I know that life is very much happening and it's abundant and teeming. I also occasionally meet people because, as has been mentioned, hundreds of people week in, week out using this space for exercise, for their mental health, and just to be out there. Because let me tell you as well, you do see some amazing sunsets and some sunrises there. And then we come to us being here, don't we? Because the Duke called this inquiry, but he's not here. He's not here. We are, but he's not. Which suggests to me that the woods and the meadow are just a pixel in his 280,000 acre portfolio. Whereas to us, it's like a whole world, it's a community. So the point I'm making is that the Duke, he can afford not to be here because he can afford to let this become concrete and metal. We can't afford not to be here, and we can't afford to let that happen. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Ms. Currie.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir, to contribute to this inquiry. This statement is from myself and Katie Brosnan. I'm an educational and child psychologist, and I'm chair of trustees at Youth Works in Rockingham Road, which is very close to the site. This is an independent school and counselling services which sees over 1,000 young people a year. Katie is an educator at Tresham College, working with 16 to 18-year-olds, and she's a published author and illustrator. As it is our area of expertise and extensive experience, We will focus on young people and mental health. We wish to state that we completely agree with and support the statements of John Padwick, Frankie O'Dowd and Laura Currie. We have been consistently told that the impact of the proposed development on mental health, well-being and happiness, actually, of the local community is not a material consideration and therefore doesn't really count for anything. Despite this, we've come to ask you, sir, to bear this in mind when you consider the scale, the dominance, the layout, the density, and the overall appearance of this development, and whether it complies with policy 36, because to us, those factors are directly linked to mental health well-being. Two areas that we feel have been seriously undervalued in this application are the quality of the employment opportunities and the access to nature and ecology for young people. Katie and I have directly witnessed a concerning decline in mental well-being among the next generation. The available local employment limits the aspirations of Kettering's young people, pushing them towards options, for example, in warehouses. With such unimaginative solutions for employment in our town, will our young people stay and support the local economy to thrive? This is clearly not what the council envisaged for this development. For us to be forced to accept these huge warehouses with very few low-paid jobs, we are effectively being bullied by the Cllr. Our council and the Cllr must embrace innovation and think sustainability and imaginatively for the town's future, enhancing local amenities rather than taking them away with untold consequences. There is a vast field of research which indicates that contact with nature benefits well-being. It's less well known that it also impacts on academic scores, social and emotional skills, attention control, and pro-environmental behaviours, which we will surely need in the future. These spaces are not luxuries, but essential. This development is completely out of character with its setting and will cause significant loss of landscape features. Although the development is now not encroaching on the wood, it will have a significant impact on the trees, definitely resulting in damaging and definitely killing off wildlife. The buildings are not of a similar scale to those already there. And as Mr. Shaw stated in his evidence, woodland and hedges can easily be landscaped around smaller buildings. The noise of these warehouses and the haulage is also a factor which could be avoided. The sense of space, the ability to walk through to the wood in a pleasant environment will all be lost. The Cllr have taken no account of the amenity value of the site and retaining any hope of its current use. The design of this development does not comply with policy 36 and it will devastate further the mental health and future lives of our young people, and we urge you not to allow this appeal.
I've lived in Kettering for 52 years now, and
for about the last 40 years, I've been an accountant in the local area, helping thousands of businesses to thrive. So I come from this not with a lack of understanding or appreciation for local business or for the employment needs of the town, which has been my home. In 2010, I became chairman of a group called Naturalise, which was a voluntary group seeking to improve the biodiversity along the River Eyes in Kettering. I therefore acutely felt the contradiction of improving the biodiversity on the east side of Kettering, with our event planned for planting 138 new trees in January 24, and this year 2,500 square metres of wildflower seed sown during the summer. At the same time, a plan to devastate an area of biodiverse rich meadow of high ecological value, which is in existence in the north of Kettering. This impacts directly the wildlife corridor that Naturalise has been developing for 13 years. These corridors are vital to the reversal of the devastating drop in biodiversity experienced in this country, as highlighted by the 2023 State of Nature report. So that is why I got involved with the same Weekley Hall Wood group. For the last week and a half, I've been sitting alongside our barrister, Mr. Paul Stinchcombe, during this inquiry. And so far, I've heard the Cllr team talk about the need for B8 warehouses in Kettering. I'm also aware of the importance of the North Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy Policy 36. And I'm really struggling with both the term need and with the stipulations of Policy 36 in relation to this application. You can see the level of interest in this application from the local people. So what would the people of Kettering say about the requirements of Policy 36 and this standalone planning application? Section E says, for a network of high quality landscaping that retains and enhances, where possible, the historic landscape and the ecological and recreational value of the site. No. F, to protect the local sets out to protect the local wildlife sites. No. G sets out for the extension of the Kettering Business Park circular walk and enhancement of the bridleway network. No. In addition, that these 5 B8 warehouses that will cover most of the meadow and only have tarmac between them and fencing around can be considered, as the policy stipulates, small scale. To local people, no, that doesn't seem right. So how about this word need? Well, with low unemployment rates in the town, it's not the people of Kettering who need warehouse jobs. So what I'm asking is, what do we need? Green space for people to walk, run, cycle, take their dogs for a walk. A place where people can recharge their batteries, improve their mental and physical health. A place where wildlife can live and thrive. So, sir, I'm asking you, the decision seems clear to me. The application before you does not suit us and it does not comply with Policy 36. It should be rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. Mr. Dixon.
Good evening, sir. There are, picking up on what Mr. Toms has said, there are 3 points that I'd like to talk to you about concerning Policy 36 of the Joint Core Strategy. My first point is that the Kettering North area should not have been allocated in the first place. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and I'm not necessarily blaming the planning authority for what happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they probably didn't appreciate the true ecological and amenity value of the area, the western end of it in particular. Unlike now, there was no fuss from local residents, presumably because they were unaware of what was being planned. The planners were doubtless under pressure to find sites for future commercial development, and of course, the Cllr, having offered up the land, would have been key to clinch the allocation. And to be fair to the council, things have changed dramatically over the past 10 years. Climate change is now engulfing us. People are finally waking up to the urgent need to take action to counter it. A campus-style development in a woodland setting might have been okay 10 years ago, but not now. My second point about Policy 36 is to express my disappointment that in May 2022, the council gave the Cllr Estates and Ian Kelly permission to construct a large building on the site referred to as the Ian Kelly Phase 2 site in this inquiry. Why is this so disappointing? Well, 90% of the Ian Kelly Phase 2 site formed part of the Kettering North allocation. Many objectors, and indeed some members of the planning committee itself, forcefully argued that it would be an obvious and unjustified breach of Policy 36 for any part of the allocation to be developed before a comprehensive master plan for the whole allocation had been agreed by the planning authority. It was argued that by allowing a large warehouse to be built across the southern section of the meadow, the council would be setting the tone for the development of the whole meadow. That was, I am sure, precisely what the Cllr wanted to achieve, and it is no surprise that they have sought to take full advantage of that achievement in their pursuit of this appeal. Sadly, the planners in May 2022 completely failed to see what was coming. As was already picked out and quoted by the Cllr's barrister, the planning officer boldly advised in her report that approval of the Ian Kelly scheme would not prejudice the master plan. The majority on the planning committee accepted that absurd piece of advice. I could only hope that history does not now repeat itself. My third and final point about Policy 36 is a very real one, but whether we like it or not, it exists, and its clear and detailed provisions have to be complied with. My firm belief is that for all the many reasons you have heard, the proposals brought forward by the Cllr for development of the western third of the allocated area fail to comply with it. The overarching reason, though, is that the Cllr have not brought forward a comprehensive Policy 36 compliant master plan for the development of Kettering North, which the council can agree. It surely cannot be right to allow this appeal in the absence of an agreed master plan, where the planning balance is so obviously tilted against the development.
Ezra.
Evening, sir. So, I've cut my speech down drastically in the last hour, so forgive me for going to provide some of the salient points, so quickly. I'd like to highlight some of the key aspects of the meadow question. The meadow itself brings a number of benefits. Number one, biodiversity. These meadows provide habitats for a wide range of species, including plants, insects, birds, and small mammals. The diversity of plant life in meadows supports different types of insects and pollinators, which are crucial for ecosystem health. Two, edge effect. The transition zone or ecotone between meadow and woodland often supports unique species and greater biodiversity than either habitat alone. This edge effect creates an area where species from both habitats can coexist and interact. Three, food sources. Meadows are rich in food resource for many woodland creatures. They offer foraging opportunities for animals that live in woods, contributing to a more balanced ecosystem. Four, natural corridors. These areas can serve as corridors for wildlife movement, enabling species to travel between different areas of woodland, which is important for breeding and genetic diversity. Number five, climate regulation. Meadows play a role in climate regulation by capturing carbon dioxide, a significant greenhouse gas. The combination of meadow and woodland can be more effective at carbon sequestration, don't know whether I've said that right, than woodland alone. Number 6, water regulation. Meadows next to woodlands can also help in water regulation. They can act as natural sponges, absorbing rainfall and reducing runoff into the woods, which helps prevent soil erosion and maintains water quality. And lastly, 7, educational and recreational value. These areas provide opportunities for education and recreation, allowing people to connect with nature and understand the importance of biodiversity and ecosystem health. Overall, meadows adjacent to woodlands are crucial for maintaining ecological balance, supporting diverse species and providing various ecosystem services. On the subject of warehouse demand, I find it surprising that evidence was presented to suggest that the demand is there for any kind of additional warehousing in Kettering. As with even with the most brief of investigations, substantial second-hand warehouse space in the region is available on sublease or assignment. This situation arises as retailers, e-commerce companies, and third-party logistics providers are either retrenching or looking to offset overheads. Specifically, 4 companies are seeking to assign or sublease nearly 1 million square feet of warehouse space, which they took less than 2 years ago. This includes 4PX Express, a Chinese cross-border e-commerce solutions provider, is looking to assign or sublease 249,579 square feet of warehouse space in Northampton. Hotel Chocolat is seeking to sublet 205,000 square feet. MH Star, a multi-channel e-commerce company, is aiming to assign or sublet 2 buildings totaling 354 square feet. Active Ants is looking to sublet its 252,000 square feet green outstanding automated fulfillment centre at the Bracknell's Gateway scheme, which amounts to around 100 square feet. In addition, there is a new 500,000 square feet speculative build by Tritax on the edge of Kettering, part of which could be leased out by any company looking for small, medium, or even large warehouse spaces. There are also a series of warehouse units in Kettering itself, more coming on the market every day, you can see. Hitwell Road is a recent example. These cases indicate a significant availability of warehouse space for subletting in Northamptonshire, reflecting the dynamics of the region's industrial and logistics property market. One would argue that perhaps these spaces be filled before building any further speculative units, destroying such needed areas of biodiversity. In short, I don't see how the demand could be there for so much space already available and more to come next year. You find yourself in the unenviable position of decision maker here. 2 opinions are so polarised that often causes turbulence. There is, however, a way in which both parties can be appeased. For Cllr properties, the area represents a commercial value. If it is possible that that value can be divulged to the community, perhaps a buyout of some kind can be orchestrated, as has been done in Scotland recently in the Langholm buyout, where the community raised funds to purchase a piece of land earmarked for development to preserve it. To quote the CEO of the Cllr Properties, when interviewed after the buyout was complete, "For myself and the Cllr team, it has been a pleasure to be part of this story, and we look forward working with the Nature Reserve to what can be achieved by them in the future." To conclude, in my opinion, the proposed development, as far as I can see, offers no value to either side of this equation, and both would be better off getting around the table discussing the future of Weekley Hall Wood and Meadow with fresh eyes. And in my speech, I've referenced the areas where the evidence has come from as well for your perusal later. Thank you.
Ms. Rowans.
It's going to be short and sweet and possibly a bit more lowbrow than we've heard so far. I'm Mrs. Average Ketteriner. I have 1 husband, 2 school-aged children, and a black Labrador. I've lived at the north end of Kettering most of my life, and the area we're calling Weekley Hall Woods and Meadow has always been part of my life. I played there as a child, I caught it there as a teenager. I spent the pandemic there. My children have played there and are possibly now caught in there. And I walk my dog there. Also, being a perimenopausal woman, very on trend, I know, it is a godsend to be a short walk from such a beautiful solace. Scientists tell us that there will be more pandemics. And at this very time, there's an inquiry going ahead looking for lessons from the last pandemic. Taking away an area that Kettering needed so badly will be a mistake, one which can't be learned from, as it will be too late, it will be gone. One of my friends has actually asked me to speak on her behalf because she couldn't get a slot today. Josie is head of English at a local secondary school. So bear with me, she wrote this tonight, so I'll try to read it clearly. She reiterates that what we all know, that the recent pandemic has had a devastating impact on the mental health of our young people. The Wood and Meadow is a vital resource and open space for the young people of the north of Kettering. Several teenagers wrote the importance of saving the wood in their GCSE spoken language assessment. They spoke with maturity and insight on how the woods have been important to their parents and now were important to them, and how they hope to take their children there in the future. Unfortunately, she could not persuade any of them to come and speak tonight, but she was proud to see that many of them were at the council offices protesting against the planning application. As part of their citizen lessons, they are taught about local and national governance and democracy, which is why she is pleased to attend tonight to represent their views. So anyway, this is the second time I've done this. As you can tell, I'm not exactly comfortable doing it. But last time I went to a similar situation. I went to Kettering Council offices where I supported one of the councillors putting forward an amendment to protect the green spaces and parks of the Kettering area. That was unanimously passed. So please, I'm begging you to keep me on my winning streak and say no to this application. Thank you for listening.
Ms. Ryan.
Hello, I'm up here as well. Hi everyone, hi sir, my name is Lisa. I'm here tonight as someone who was also born and raised in Kettering and in the north end of town, and now I'm raising a family of my own there too. I want to share with you how important the meadow and the woodland are to me, but through the different lenses that I look through, as an individual, as a mother, hopefully as a grandmother in the future, although my teenage son says no at the moment. And lastly, and perhaps differently, as someone who is a public servant in this county and a member of the emergency services, I work every day with the sole goal of keeping people safe, healthy and well. My main concern really, and others have more eloquently already said it, is that Kettering and its communities post-pandemic have really, really different needs to the ones prior to COVID when strategies and applications were written. Our integrated care system has generated some great local area partnerships across the county and here in North Northants. And at the moment, those partnerships for the Kettering urban area and the Kettering rural area are looking at public health data that is publicly available, and also gathering community insights as to those wider social determinants of health and what people want for their area. In both of those areas, Kettering rural and Kettering urban, community mental health and well-being is a major priority. What that means is
that everyone around that table in the partnerships, the agencies, the statutory bodies, the charities, the community organisations, we have all agreed to prioritise efforts to prevent escalation of poor mental health and to improve emotional well-being of people in our communities. And we've heard already from youth works about what that means to young people in this town and in the north end of Kettering. So we know our health service can't cope with the tidal wave of mental health that is happening now and has been happening for a number of years. So we signpost people to advice, top tips to keep themselves safe, well and healthy. All of that advice, and it doesn't matter where you get it from, whether it's from a national charity, a local charity, a local authorities or the NHS, all of that advice tells us that being physically active, and more importantly, being physically active in nature, connecting with flora and fauna is vitally important and has a massive impact on all of us. It's documented, it's evidenced, it's proven. And that is why we're all here, because this is what we're doing in the meadow and the woodland. We are looking after our own mental health. We are improving our emotional well-being. Nowhere in any of that published advice does it tell me to walk in the shadows. Nowhere does it tell me to walk alongside a huge metal structure that blocks out the sunset or the sunrise, that drowns out the noise of the birds and the insects. Nowhere is that published as being good for me, for my children, or anyone else in our communities. So I wanted really to hammer home that point that many of us tonight have made about mental health. Yes, this might be about economic development, but at the heart of this are people and our emotional well-being counts. And when I spoke to my teenage boys about tonight, the oldest one actually said to me, and this is unedited, so excuse it, is this actually for real, Mum? Has this really come to this? Does no one see that when you are teaching us to reuse, repurpose, recycle, does no one see that we don't need more stuff? We don't need warehouses because we don't need more stuff. We need to use what we've got, and we need to use it better. So don't take away this land from us to give us something we don't need. Thank you.
As well.
I'm going to stand up here as well. I'm not someone who does this sort of thing, which just shows how important I feel it is. It also puts me in mind of the Joni Mitchell song, Big Yellow Taxi, where she sings, "Don't it always seem you don't know what you've got till it's gone. They paid paradise to enter the parking lot." Except in this instance, we do know what we've got, and we need to make sure it isn't gone for the future generations and also for the wildlife. I grew up in Northamptonshire, and me and my sister spent a lot of our childhood surrounded by nature. Our parents were naturalists. Like, I managed to say that right, I was a bit worried about that. Mum and Dad were also wardens of Barford Meadow, which is just on the other side of Rockingham Road, on the A603 on the way to Corby. This is a triple SI owned by Northamptonshire Wildlife Trust. Dad was also the county moss recorder, and they actually published a book on the local moss records. The large moss of Northamptonshire and the Central Leeds. There are entries related to historical records from the Weekley Hall Woods in Meadow. Me and my sister also kept nature diaries when we have, which we noted sightings of various species and also records of trips out. Quite a few entries relate to Weekley Hall Woods. That's my nature diary from when I was 11, with pictures as well. The impact of losing this woodland and meadow has wider implications than just on the area of actually Weekley Hall Woods and meadows. It does form an integral part of the wildlife corridor, as was mentioned by people already. So this covers Barfoot Meadow, the Hilly Hollies, Geddington Chase, and also the Eyes area as well. As such, depletion of species in the surrounding and wider areas would also occur as a direct result of losing the woodland and meadow, which has already been reduced massively in size, being 200 or so acres in the 1950s. Discussing this with my sister, she spoke of the shifting baseline and what we expect. So years ago, the expectation would have been to see a much greater quantity of diversity of wildlife than we do now. So my father, when he was a young child, would have expected to see a wide range of moths and butterflies. However, now, what tends to happen is we see a few species and we think that's really good, but actually it isn't. It's just that our perception of what is expected and what is normal has altered. And this is the concern, that if the meadow and the woodland are depleted, then our expectation becomes less as well. So future generations will just expect to see warehouses and everything built up and no access to nature. Weekley Hall Wood has been shown to contain many regular species, as already discussed by the expert witnesses that you've had in place. If the area is destroyed, it furthers the risk of losing these species permanently. However, if it is retained as such, there's so much local interest that so many people attending Kettering Nature Group, all of the people here tonight, that this area could actually be developed and actually areas and species reintroduced. As such happened with red mice and also the checkered skipper in Northamptonshire. Aside from the ecology aspect of why this area is so important, it is also widely used by members of the public for exercise, relaxation, as already discussed by many people. All things which are important in daily living. As an occupational therapist, I'm very aware of the importance of purposeful activity and how the impact of the loss of this affects people's mental health as well as physical well-being. So the importance of activity, just spending time with it, both from a physical and mental health point of view, is very important. And my parents unfortunately passed away last year, but they actually managed to retain their physical well-being into their 80s. They did a daily walk every day. And I think that this is something that's vitally important, and it's something that should actually be respected and considered within this application. And it shouldn't go ahead, because it needs to be that we can all access local wildlife as and when we choose. That's it.
Thank you.
Well done.
Mr. Fedorowycz.
Hi. I've submitted my speech to the officer here, and I'd like to sort of donate my time to my daughter, Emily Fedorowycz, if that's okay, so that she has a bit more time to speak. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, and I just also wanted to say a sincere thank you for this evening's session. Very much appreciated. My name is Emily Fedorowycz, and I'm one of the councillors representing the Cllr Wood in Kettering, which is the most northern part of Kettering, which borders Weekley Hall Wood and the Meadow. This land is cherished for dog walking, running, cycling, so much more that's been discussed tonight. It is an invaluable green space. Yet, despite its particular importance to Brambleside and All Saints residents, and the fact that they are the residents who utilise the space the most, they have been restricted in their ability to challenge this development due to its location outside their ward boundary. This limitation has also hindered us as councillors from effectively representing those most affected. The proposal site falls within the Weekley ward, where local residents are less impacted up the road, granting their councillors more influence in the planning and consultation process. This ward boundary issue has therefore resulted in a diminished voice and a representation for those most affected, undermining the proposal's quality and its consultation process. Walking through the woods, the presence of a huge warehouse would clearly overshadow the public footpath through the wood and erase the right of way through the meadow that has been used for hundreds of years. This amenity would not be the same, and the benefits it currently gives residents would be lost forever. We've held many community litter picks in the meadow, but one of the largest ever litter picks was there at the meadow, with 90 people coming out, and that just shows how much people care about the meadow. In a couple of hours, we managed to clean up around 70 bags of rubbish, with people giving their time to look after this space. I spent most of this particular litter pick alongside the Iron Kelly building with my mum, who's here tonight, and the litter that came from that warehouse expanded so much further than you would have expected. I was finding plastic packaging, zip ties, plastic netting, leather, fabric, and more, expanding way beyond the borders, 30 metres from the fencing, and the warehouse itself was set back from the fence at least another 100 metres. One could say that corporate responsibility will ensure that this does not degrade the environment, but from the existing developments already near the space, we are seeing this is not being fulfilled. The degradation is happening now, in real time. Proposed mitigation measures for the new developments lack credibility, and based on the current evidence will bring considerable environmental damage to the woodland that it proposes to sit alongside. The ecological impact of these warehouses cannot be overstated, as has been mentioned, but also the wildlife that's been seen here, photographed and recorded, is critical. The local butterfly conservationists have evaluated the space at Weekley Hall Wood, and the meadow is deemed just as valuable for wildlife as the woodland. If this proposal were to go ahead, the loss of local wildlife and habitats would be irreversible. Britain has lost 97% of its flower-rich grassland since the 1940s. In the last nearly 20 years, since 2004, England has seen a decline of 65% in insects, many of which are pollinators which we desperately need to support agriculture, local ecosystems. The leading reason for this decline is loss of habitat, exactly what this development is proposing. At a time of ecological crisis, the proposal to mow down and pave over critical, ecologically rich grassland, and it will destroy the life that is there. Attempts to boost ecology in other areas cannot replace what is lost. There is also a huge carbon sink aspect of this vast grassland that has been largely ignored. Grassland soaks up approximately 1 tonne per 1,000 metres squared. So the amount of carbon dioxide for this area, 23 hectares, makes the carbon loss to 230 tonnes. That's a 3,000-mile round trip flight, like one from Boston to London and back, 230 times. It is a huge amount. All of that carbon is currently being absorbed and now being paved over, or proposed to be so. And also the carbon bound within the soil will be churned up and released as well. The Cllr is not going to create new grassland by removing other structures or mitigate this carbon sink loss. So paving over this vital area that is soaking up not only carbon, but also water, as has been mentioned, poses a huge environmental risk to this local population. The overwhelming opposition to this development is very evident in the 224,000 signatures on the opposing petition, but it's also something that I've heard time and time again as a local councillor. And this clearly reflects the community's priorities, something that is not reflected in the local plan and joint core strategy, which is vastly out of date. This needs to evolve to reflect the changing times and values, which is exactly what we've been elected to do as local councillors. I've also been sitting on panels discussing a project called the Big 50, which is North Northamptonshire's shared vision for where we want to be in 2050. As part of this work, we've been looking at skills and the workforces that we need in the area. Analysis of North Northamptonshire has shown that we have a high percentage of low-skilled jobs, which equates to low pay, adding additional challenges to the communities of Kettering, especially during the cost of living. This development will encourage more low-skilled, low-pay work, which in time will also become increasingly automated and will negatively impact the Kettering community and economy, offering the wrong kinds of jobs than those we are aspiring to create. We are seeking to be an area of innovation and tech, and logistics, B8 warehousing is not going to fulfill Kettering's needs. As we have heard, there is plenty of other warehousing that will also fulfill that. The heritage of this land, part of the ancient Rockingham Forest, the most southern part, must be considered. Its cultural and historical significance seems completely disregarded by the Cllr, the current landowners. In past months, the area has been hired out for 4x4 Land Rover events, allowing paying visitors to joyride through these woods. The Cllr has offered little protection for local wildlife here by allowing these activities, whilst in other areas they have gone above and beyond to protect habitats just down the road. Why protect some and not all? What's the difference? Perhaps one difference is the fact that a reduced biodiversity survey in this area will mean that less mitigation needs to be done. There are currently no laws to stop developers degrading the biodiversity of an area before they build on it. That's fact. Whether this has been done here or not is one question, but it is clear that the Cllr present themselves as a body that is seeking to enhance nature, but that this is not the case on all of their land. This throws into question once again their credibility of their mitigation proposals, and these 4x4 events further prove that the Cllr do not hold this land and its environmental, cultural and historical significance in very high regard. Meanwhile, for the public, Weekley Hall Wood and the surrounding meadow are held in such esteem because it is the largest open green space and woodland that you can walk to from the north of Kettering. The rich history of the land is also key, given that this used to be common land and was taken back from the people in 1807. In early meetings with the Cllr Estates, a community buyback of the land was tabled, and the Cllr team agreed that this could be a viable option. But despite asking multiple times for a price so that the community could consider this option if they could raise the funds, the Cllr property has still refused to give a price, and the possibility of a community buyout has been wholly ignored, instead favouring developments that clash with the area's heritage and landscape. As part of the community buyout conversation, the proposal of turning this area into a Cllr Country Park was also raised to form a compromise that complements the landowners' need to generate profit, but also retaining and enhancing the local wildlife and heritage of the space. This proposal would also create meaningful jobs that would enhance the local economy rather than detract from it. In summary, this development is insufficiently supported, contradicts the local plan and the future vision for this area, and poses a significant environmental threat to this rich and woodland and meadow. The people of Kettering face the loss of a vital amenity, and these huge warehouses will overshadow, cut off, and completely negate the value of this space. It must be thoroughly reconsidered or rejected to preserve the integrity of our community, heritage, and environment. Thank you.
Apologies,
It's okay, that's fine, it's fine. So this is just coming from somebody that grew up in Kettering and spent most of their time in the wood, even this evening. So good evening, everyone. The woods are a safe place for me to think and breathe. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is, the woods doesn't discriminate. I spent my childhood, my teens, my adulthood in these woods, from building dens, mountain biking, cooking, walking my dogs, even to help me heal and grieve after losing a loved one. It's safe to say I've spent at least 20 plus years in Weekley Hall Woods and appreciate every second of it. I definitely feel that the woods can help make well-rounded individuals. Places like these are essential for our next generations to grow side by side with. It's difficult to put into words the benefits of these particular woods. I'd suggest a walk around the area yourself so you can obtain a good understanding of why we're opposed to these warehouses being built. From the moment I walk into the wood, I feel alive. Life's pressures just vanish. I can feel a weight off my shoulders and helps to disconnect to reconnect. Sometimes I sit and wait patiently just to see what wildlife I'll come across. The woods have given me perspective over the years, as each day, each season is different. And every time I go for a walk, I spot something new. Maybe a new tree, a plant, a shrub, a leaf, or an animal. We are so lucky to have such biodiversity just a few feet away from our doorstep. I work for a financial technology company which invests heavily in well-being, which most companies do nowadays. This is great, however, and I and others agree, if you put, all you need to do is just walk into a wood like Weekley Hall Woods and get yourself a good dose of nature. The sound of the wind caressing the leaves and the birds and the bees is just spectacular. Literally down the road from our wood, less than a mile, the Cllr Estate are undertaking a restoration project for their star pond, which I quote is on the sign, with the aim to establish new habitats for a variety of species, and they hope the bats and the birds such as willow, tit will make their home there. And good for them. But the irony is that this new ecosystem will take years, if not decades, to become established. And here we are trying to save a wood and its inhabitants, which are already very well established. We really don't need more warehouses around Kettering. There are plenty of vacated ones around. We need our green spaces and we need our woods. Thank you.
Ms. Coles.
This has been adapted from SWHW Julia Fletcher of STAUNCH. The world leaders currently meeting at COP28.
I think it's probably better if you don't use the microphone.
With world leaders currently meeting at COP28, it's clear that now is the time for decisive action to protect us all from the huge threat of global warming. The government and North Northants Council are both trying to get to zero emissions by 2050. On the council's website, it says, local businesses will play a vital role if we are to achieve our goal for the whole of North Northamptonshire to reach net zero emissions. They've also declared the goal of reaching net carbon by 2030 in just 6 years' time. Our local elected representatives are doing a good job of leading the way, but I'm afraid I don't have the same confidence in this development. Their planning documents seem to make a number of assumptions. Firstly, they assume that the buildings will be there for 60 years and that this long use will reduce their CO2 impact. However, there's already a large market in demolishing older warehouses to allow newer technology to be installed. Experts are suggesting that even new warehouses only have a 35-year lifespan. We've got to ask, is it really likely these warehouses will last until 2084? Secondly, the proposal doesn't provide a figure for CO2 released from the soil as a part of construction. The Royal Institute of British Architects say that up to 20% of the world's CO2 emissions come from the release of carbon due to ground disturbance. So this is a massive oversight. Thirdly, the projected total number of vehicle trips does not include workers travelling to the site daily. Finally, the developer's proposed habitat compensation scheme will release further carbon into the atmosphere, as it will require arable fields to be deep ploughed. This will release huge amounts of locked-in carbon from the soil. Even if we ignore all these points, the developers acknowledge that these warehouses will create 16 million tonnes of CO2. That's a huge number. To put it in context, Northants Council has so far replaced more than 20,000 streetlights with LED lights. They proudly announced that this saves 536 tonnes of CO2 a year, yet it would take 30,000 years of LED street lighting to offset carbon released by this development. The ONS have calculated that during the COVID lockdown in 2020, household transport emissions in the whole of the UK dropped by 24%. Guess how much this saved? Well, it was the same number, 16 million tonnes of CO2. Essentially, a single warehouse development in Kettering would generate as much CO2 as we saved by keeping the entire nation close to home for months. How on earth will this development help us achieve net zero emissions? And this was prepared with input from Julia Fletcher of STAUNCH, and we have referenced all the factors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Barry,
Good evening, sir. My name is Kim Parry. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a partner at SWHW Chartered Accountants, and we're tenants based on the Kettering Business Park on Weekley Wood Close. All along, we have opposed in writing against these planning proposals on the ground of access. To give you some background, we've actually been in our offices for nearly 6 years now, and in that time, we have seen the building of AMC, Telford Man, Ironstone Wellbeing Centre, Kelly, the storage team, and the Salvation being built. And we have had to live through this building work and have seen firsthand the impact to the access to this estate. The problem is there is only one access road into the estate, which is Weekley Wood Avenue. I have witnessed and experienced a lot of traffic issues and safety issues as a result, with the main culprit being the lorries. When we first moved into our offices, we had lots of problems from the lorries. They would drive in our car park and stay there overnight, leaving all of their rubbish behind, very unsavoury, including human feces. The weight of these lorries damaged our block paving and rocks, and to resolve this issue, we've had to install metal gates and lock them every night. If you actually look around the estate, every premises have now got lockable gates for their own to stop this access. For the past 5 years, we've had serious issues with the lorries parking along Weekley Wood Avenue, making it a one-track road and extremely dangerous to actually overtake, especially around the blind corner by the Holiday Inn hotel entrance, which is very busy. They even just leave the trailer behind and drive off the cab. Despite parking notices and warning signs being up, it's never been enforced and not policed. And after years and years of complaining, only this year, the lorry issue has drastically improved with the installation of ANPR cameras, issuing fixed penalty notices. However, there is still coming and goings along this road and parking up for short intervals, which causes safety issues and blind spots on the junctions. In particular, on Cherry Hall Road is the police headquarters, and when the police cars come out with their blue lights on, this can create an extremely dangerous situation. One of my clients, in fact, was involved in a serious road traffic accident as a result of an ambulance on a blue light at this junction of Weekley Wood Avenue, and we all know that the recent death fatality of a pedestrian. Access is an issue with the hamburger layout as also. The lights will only allow a couple of lorries or perhaps a car to get through in one go before it's your turn. They turn then to amber. My serious concern is with lorries due to the proposed warehouses. This would create extra traffic and hold-ups for all the other users on the estate. The condition of the road surface around this area, including the hamburger roundabout, just proves the amount of traffic and the weight of this traffic that is being passing, and it's been repaired numerous times now. I actually have a couple of elderly clients that won't actually come to our offices because they are scared of the actual hamburger roundabout. And surely, road safety awareness for all road users should really be considered. Already with the business on the estate, there is queuing at the traffic lights at rush hours. When Kelly's 4:30 PM shift finishes, this causes queuing along Weekley Wood Avenue, and as a result, my staff then have to finish work after 4:30 and offset this to avoid this traffic. At some point, it has been so bad that we can't even get out of Ironstone Place because the traffic is queuing all the way back to there. And I know there has been issues in the past with the timing of the traffic lights causing some of this also. So my serious concern is how Weekley Wood Avenue will be able to cope with the increase in traffic and congestion caused by this proposed development. The access is also unsafe for cyclists on the estate. A lot of the premises actually have bike storage racks, but from looking around, they are rarely used and not many bicycles are kept in them. And I think this just goes to show that it's not very safe around there to actually cycle, and it puts people off. My staff at lunch go out at lunch times and walk around with the woods and along Cherry Hall Road. And we do encourage this. It's wonderful to get away from the desk, and it really encourages for wellness and their well-being, and it also motivates them. They are fair weather walkers though, so they walk in the cold but not in the rain. But obviously losing this woodland area in Meadow would greatly impact their lunchtime activities, and I really feel it would impact our productivity of our workforce also. I must also add that my staff reported back to me that they struggled to cross over at Weekley Wood Avenue because there's not actually any crossing for any pedestrians or other road users like cyclists. I have experienced this myself with my children, and I've opted to have to cross over at the island and wait for the traffic lights to change for a safe time. I'm really surprised that there is no crossing for pedestrians and cyclists. Again, there appears to be lack of support for other road users and for safety. The street names of the roads on the estate are named after the wood, but with the proposed development, it seems ironic that they will only be the evidence of any woodland ever being there. I personally live in Kettering and regularly use the woods for walks, and my children love the plays and the dens. The beauty of the woods is accessibility for everybody. Wheelchair users, mobility scooters, bicycles, walkers, runners, pushchairs and scooters all have the same access to the hardcore path that goes around. This means everyone is brought closer to nature and no one is discriminated against. I feel that the planners should consider all of the users of this area. It's not just the local residents, the wildlife, but the actual businesses that already have a home on that estate. So we will be greatly impacted by the future proposed development also. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Introduce myself, I'm Stevie Jones, and also formerly an archaeologist. I lived in the north part of Kettering and also in Geddington. So I've lived either side of Weekley Hall Wood. It's always been a place that's been very important to me, and inspiration for an artist and general mindfulness and enjoying nature, but also to appreciate the landscape and the archaeology. I'd just like to spend a couple of moments, if we could, just to put in context Weekley Hall Woods and the Meadow in terms of the local landscape. Part of the Boughton estate, the later medieval period, Weekley Hall Woods itself was part of avenues of trees, which is very much part of the landscaped area of the Boughton estate, very important part of the deer park and everything. And the Meadow is just slightly south of that. The area itself is very rich in archaeology as well, not just the late medieval period, which like I just mentioned, but also there's Roman roads near there, there's Roman lime kilns, there's Iron Age occupation. And during the steelworks era, the Boughton estate handed over a lot of the land to be used for limestone quarry, for British steel. During that time, some great archaeological finds were found, including lime kilns and so on. So we've seen around the wood, the area has actually been quite heavily scarred already by steelworks, and it's gone all the way around the wood and right up to the meadow. And it was actually quite a big scar on the landscape over the years. And I'd just like to quote something back in 1949 that I spotted earlier, a debate in the House of Commons, which was talking about the devastation that the steelworks caused. So in 1949, saw a House of Commons, a German debate about ironstone working in Northamptonshire, when Mr. Kitchison of Kettering spoke of the devastation around Kettering and Corby, where drag lines and shovels seem to stand on every skyline. The whole countryside is disfigured. Now, we don't want to see that again happening with these warehouses coming up to the meadow, going right up to the woods. Before we know it, they'll be talking about encroaching into the woods. What we have seen since the decline of British steel occupation in that is a massive regeneration all around the woods. The most recent woodland I've watched growing up in the last 30 years or so. So all of the beautiful pines, silver birches, all of the great new pathways that we all enjoy now, a lot of that is only sort of 50 years old. But my God, what a great regeneration that's happened. And the meadow is very much part of that landscape. And a very, very important part of it is too, that we all appreciate, and we have really appreciated more so during the pandemic. What I'd like to do is to maybe look closely at the meadows. Part of that is a very important part of what we all enjoy, but also look at Stanwick Lakes, what they've done there. That was very much scarred as well by all the ironstone quarry. There's lots of archaeology there as well, which I was part of excavating many years ago. But what they've done there with Stanwick Lakes, they built this visitor centre there. and they've helped regenerate that area, and it's been a very important part of our local communities. People have come there, they've enjoyed the cafes, they've enjoyed the display boards. That's something that we could do with the meadow. We could have display boards, we could even maybe have a small visitor centre, who knows, maybe a small cafe, if it's done tastefully and respectful of the landscape. So definitely something for everyone to think about. The meadow is so important to us all, and it's part of very much a rich landscape in so many ways.
The Styles.
Hi, I'm from South Forward. I lived in Kettering for 18 years. I actually now live in a tiny village just near here. But that's made the Meadow and Woodland more precious to me because there is nothing like that near me now. I didn't live on the north side of Kettering. I lived on the east side, closer to Weekley Village and Boughton House actually than I was for the woods. But it's still the only woods you can walk to, and it's very walkable through town. I have checked, and the nearest wood I can find that's not Weekley Hall Wood is actually Fine Shape, which is 15 miles away from my old postcode, when Weekley is 2. So you'd have to get in your car, drive, pay for parking. It's a much bigger journey to go there than it is to go to Weekley Woods and the Meadow. And as I say, there is nothing like that near me now in the kind of agricultural landscape around the villages here. It's invaluable for sunrise pictures, sunsets, going for walks, having the chance to bathe in the forest and get that peace. I'm very sure if you did a 15-mile radius, there'd be far more places for warehouses than there are woods. Just seems to be the nature of the A14, unfortunately. So I hope it will be reconsidered.
Understood.
That's Caroline Smith. I actually live in Thrapston, so a little bit of an anomaly for the meeting here. So Kettering, hello everybody. I've written a broad response because in fact we are facing two large warehouses which are larger than Thrapston itself. So we are having our own little problems there. So on a sort of broader scale, West Northants has the most warehouses in the UK, I'm informed. Why does North Northants want to compete with that? The market size of warehousing is from the statistics that I got on the internet, which I think was in 2021, was 29.5 billion. Isn't that enough? Why does it need to keep growing? As the young lad said, why do we need more stuff? And why do we need it delivering tomorrow? 215,000 individuals are employed in warehousing already, but 20% of businesses have severe to very severe problems employing warehouse staff. 2022 statistics, probably worse now. I did a quick Google search yesterday, pretended I was looking for a warehouse job, and in and around Corby, I stopped at 64 warehouse operative jobs that were available, and we know Corby is struggling to recruit. Brexit reduced, wonderful thing, reduced access to European workers to do warehouse jobs, and I think we've felt the pressure of that, as well as in the health service, which is where I work. Do we really want local aspirations in Northamptonshire to be working in warehouses? They say on the media that there's lots of different types of jobs in warehouses, from lawyers to travelling the world. I suspect most of them are low skill than unionised workers. What about diversity and green jobs? What about using our beautiful countryside to promote tourism and leisure? The staff over here has got some great ideas. Wildlife, countryside and woodland are not easily replaced once it's gone. How many David Attenboroughs do we need to watch to know the destruction that we're already causing? How many COP28s do we need to hear to know the damage that's already been done? We know there'll be more traffic and more congestion from the warehouses, and people having to drive from far afield to get to work because there aren't enough local people to do the jobs. What about pollution and lung disease? We know it's already increasing. What about the growing crisis in mental health? Many people have referred to that. Rest, exercise, relaxation and leisure in the countryside is crucial to our well-being. Reducing the places that we'll be able to get that can only make this worse. Do we really need more? Who will be brave enough to say enough is enough? It would be fantastic if today was the day.
Mr. Hanson.
I'm a governor at Brambleside Primary School, where both my children are educated. It is the closest school to Weekley Hall Woods, the only substantial woodland area accessible of Icourt in the north of Kettering, and therefore full of school. It's in Cllr Hill Ward, a ward which voted to save Weekley Hall Woods, and is a Kettering ward geographically linked to the woods. It amazes me that when we're teaching our children science and geography, we champion environmental issues and sustainability. Then the students witness adults ignoring science. They look on bewildered as we threaten the environment they should inherit intact. Why should our children listen to us when we show little regard for their future? The Meadow and Woodland is an exceptional resource for students to extend their skills learnt in forest school. Seeing nature in action extends what they learn in science and geography. Being in nature is always inspirational for our children's creativity. The only lesson the proposed development provides our children is that you can make money by trampling on everyone and everything. Some people will be thinking surely a school governor will want jobs to be created to make the children grow up. Yes, jobs will be created, but a quick search on Find a Job, the Department of Work and Pensions site, which is only one of the many job sites available, shows that hundreds of Kettering jobs are currently available, with salaries ranging from minimum wage to £126,000 per annum. We are not so desperate for jobs in this town that we need to destroy a beauty spot. Not one person here tonight has stated that the development needs to go ahead as they need the employment. If we want to inspire, attract and or retain high-skilled positions, we need to keep Kettering as attractive a place as possible. I'm very concerned and rather insulted that the only ambition the absent owner of the land and those on the planning committee who supported it have for the people of Kettering and the children of Brambleside is more warehouse employment, or employment that doesn't have a sustainable future. Some warehousing is necessary, but too much, which I agree we have already, limits literal and metaphorical horizons. Recently, we've had to fight to keep our theatre open. We have had to fight to keep our sports facilities open. We're fighting to keep a library and art gallery open. We shouldn't have to keep fighting to keep good things in our town. Good things for us and the generations to come. Good things that make Kettering more than a place to simply work and sleep. I'm Kettering born and bred. Those on the planning committee who voted for the destruction do not speak for me, or the majority of those living in North Kettering, and they certainly don't speak for the future generations. Brambleside School's motto is learning and growing together, and it is a travesty that one wonderful place where we can be inspired to learn and grow together faces extinction.
Mr. Liane.
Did you say name?
Mr. Liane.
A lot of people have been talking tonight about the climate crisis. Every year, the Geneva-based think tank Global Footprint Network calculates and publishes the Earth Overshoot Day. This marks the date when humanity's demand for ecological resources and services in a given year exceeds what planet Earth can generate in that year. The report says, we maintain this deficit by liquidating stocks of ecological resources and accumulating waste, primarily carbon dioxide, in the atmosphere. To determine the date of overshoot day each year, Global Footprint Network calculates the number of days of that year's biocapacity and how it suffices to provide for humanity's ecological footprint. The remainder of the year constitutes overshoot. So this year overshoot date was the 2nd of August 2023, 213 days into the year. This year we have 158 days of deficit. In just the following month, in September this year, the UN warned that the world had failed to make any progress on any of the Sustainable Development Goals brought in by the UN as emergency measures in 2015. So I've looked at just a couple of the goals. Goal 12 is about ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns, which is key to sustain the livelihoods of current and future generations. Economic and social progress, says the report, over the last century has been accompanied by environmental degradation that is endangering the very system of which the future development and the very survival of us depends. Our planet is running out of resources. As the populations continue to grow, the consumption of the global north, us, continues to far outstrip developing countries. Just to put some figures there, according to the International Maritime Organization, we humans now shift 12 billion tons of stuff in over 59,000 ships, 1.5 tons per year, yet 3 billion of us live in poverty. So it's not 1.5 tons each, is it? For us rich Westerners, it's 3 to 4 tons, which is why Goal 12 says we need to change our consumption habits and to reduce our consumption levels. Goal 15 is about conservation, it's about conserving life on land. It is to halt and reverse the degradation and to stop biodiversity loss. It says that we need to shift humanity's relationship with nature to achieve Goal 15 and realize that nature is the root of all life on Earth. However, biodiversity is declining faster than any other time in human history. We've already heard that since the Second World War, we've lost 97% of wildflower meadows. We have lost over 60% of our insect species since 2004, winged insects. Absolutely horrifying. 70% of our planet is ocean. On land, 1/5 is now degraded, according to the UN. Land degradation drives species extinction and intensifies climate degradation. So today, some today are arguing that sustainable development itself is now in effect dead. That the sustainable development strategy that was given to us at the Rio Earth Summit in '92 was simple, that we should not develop and grow our economies in ways that would stop future generations from enjoying the world that we enjoy today. Just think in terms of the sustainable development phrase and that language. That is exactly what this development is doing. That is exactly what everybody has been talking about tonight. If this development goes ahead, the future generations of our children in this town will simply not see and enjoy the things that we have enjoyed. There is no planet B. There is just the planet we have now. We all have to make a choice and to stand up and to fight for the future of our kids, because they can't fight for their future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Michael.
Weekley Hall Wood in Meadow has always been a sanctuary for me, but my lowest life up suicidal every day is visiting the wood in the meadow for the only time I leave the house. I didn't plan on making it 30. It can be an uphill battle to get treatment for your mental health. Years of being on waiting lists, issues getting medication, problems with medication reviews not taking place, it all becomes an issue. The meadow and the woodland provide us with immediate preventative treatment. See the open skies above the meadow, the tree line in the distance is instantly therapeutic. Many agree with me when I say that one of the most beautiful sights in the world is a wildflower meadow at sunset or sunrise. There are no fences or gates which are locked to certain times. No accompanying security asking you to leave during closing hours. It's free to visit with no parking charges, which is a rarity. It's accessible on foot. The more time you spend outside, the more you notice nature's subtleties. It's inspiring for the ability to be inspired by nature. The nature there saved my life. It reminded me of the beauty on earth. It showed me that you don't have to travel far from home, which I really did. I'm 28, I now have long-term goals. I'm working on attaining a career in habitat restoration directly as a result of being inspired by that meadow and woodland. It gave me a sense of direction for the first time in my life. The construction goes against government pledges to increase access to nature. My main concerns are ecological. Pivotal to maintain a mosaic of habitats in our wild spaces. That meadow existing directly adjacent to the woodland is invaluable and crucial in our entire life cycle to play out. Species known as habitat specialists specialise in living in specific environments such as flower-rich grasslands, like our meadow, woodland edges, clearings and heathland and mullen. Habitat specialist species of butterfly have decreased by 27% in abundance, lost 68% of their distribution since the 70s. In my lifetime, cancer stats have gone from 1 in 3 people to some 1 to 1 in 2. Since 2002, there has been a 40% rise in cancer incidence in the UK. I'm very wary of unnecessary and counterintuitive projects which would create pollution whilst taking away carbon sequestering from the local flora by destroying our natural heritage. It isn't just trees which help clean the air. All kinds of flora photosynthesize using carbon dioxide, pulling the carbon from the atmosphere and releasing oxygen as a waste product. Every plant on that meadow does. Some of the land has already been built on. It's important to conserve what is left. The UK has lost 97% of our wildflower meadows since the 1930s due to building projects and modern farming practices. So losing this rare currently existing habitat would be a national tragedy. There are plans to create a new meadow to replace the lost, but this will be inaccessible to the public. What will the long-term management of this meadow look like? I have some personal experience in establishing wildflower meadows and practical management of them. It takes a lot of work and resources. Wildflower seed is expensive, it takes a lot of physical labour, expensive machinery, skilled workers to operate and maintain it. Years of consistent work to establish the wildflower meadow. We have heard many stories of how this area has positively impacted local people. There are 23,000 people signed a petition, and approximately 6 million people that is significant. The woods and meadow changed my life. I think it's time that humanity takes responsibility for our actions towards our only home. Nature saved lives, it changed lives for the better, so please don't change our lives for the worse. Stevens.
Hi, I'm not quite as prepared as a lot of people, so I'm just going to talk to everyone on something making in the last couple of hours. Thanks, Alan, for showing such great stats that I'll refer back to. So, we're in a climate emergency. I'm a doctor, as you said, Dr. Stevenson, I'm a consultant at the hospital. We're in a climate emergency, and Kettering has declared a climate emergency, but it's done little to show it. It's done little to show that it's a reality. And our United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, said we're on a fast track to climate hell. Doesn't that sound like a wonderful goal? We've known this for 30 years, and we're still doing very little. We need to start acting like this is our future. Most climate scientists agree that the only way to reverse or actually minimise, because it looks like a pretty certainty, to reverse or minimise our breach of 1.5 degrees global temperature rise, which is set to be in about 5 years, everyone, is to set about a period of degrowth. As people say, we don't need more stuff. We don't need more warehouses. I do not need a toaster by 10 p.m. We need less, and we need to appreciate that. And it will take a brave council and a brave community and a brave government to accept that and to start acting like that. How can our council even pretend to be following all the guidelines to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels while still focusing on expansion and growth? We've mentioned about how things have moved on. Will we be looking back in 10 years proud of this development of warehouses? No, we will not. We will be thinking, bugger, that was a missed opportunity. the increased transportation haulage will have immediate and significant effects on air quality. Are we trying to catch up with Northampton, one of the highest town centre pollutions in the town centre in the UK? So what we'd like to compete with them. I know, you know, community competition is great, but this seems to be going in the wrong direction. I've not even reported on significant loss of habitats and species because it's been mentioned and it's you know, it's fact and we don't need to go on and on about it. We know we cannot plant a new meadow and make it all better. It might feel like this small space is insignificant in the global picture, but it's not, because it takes every person, every county, every council, every government to put a stand. We meet people in the street and they say, oh, well, there's no point. What about China? What about Russia? What about America? What about Northamptonshire? And what about making a stand for what is vital to save our future? And I have to agree with Dr. Shackleton and those people who talked about our health. We cannot overestimate the impact this has on our mental health, our physical well-being. I literally patients with chronic disease who rely on having these spaces. And whoever owns this land, this is our planet, our town, our woods and meadows, and we need to save it for the future of our children. Our council does not speak for us right now.
I haven't really got any points written down or anything. I sort of say something a couple of days ago. A lot of what I wanted to say has been said because mental health is at my forefront sort of thing. And I think it is for a lot of people here. I do volunteering and a lot, sadly, are with people from 18 onwards who have mental health problems. This shouldn't be happening in these days. And unfortunately, I volunteer doing it because there isn't the staff to actually care for these people anymore. It's very easy for people to just say, oh, give them some drugs, you know, let them sit in a corner, give them some drugs, and it's all very salty and everything. No, that's not the way to do it. A lot of the people I now work with and things are off the medication. They go to the woods, they feel grounded, they feel cared for by nature, they see the nature, and people there are in the same frame of mind, and they just say hi and get together and everyone's happy. And these things need to be looked at and thought at. I mean, I'm lucky, I live in North Kettering, but it's just so wrong because it just seems like the same for the traffic. We have got so many of these buildings up, it's crazy. They're not needed. And the traffic, my partner and I are electricians, so when we have to like zoom off and go somewhere and do some work, we are so stuck around that area because of traffic. It's ridiculous. There's just no need for it. And I'm sorry, but the Cllrs, financially, it's wonderful. They've got plenty of money. But do they need any more? Because it seems as though money is being put before people and for the wildlife. I mean, these are the crested newts and things like that. And where else are they going to go? Because it's, again, it's us encroaching on their land. It's not our land. It's not his land. It's Mother Earth. And it's being taken over by man again. We don't have the right. He doesn't have the right to do this. And I'm sorry, it's just so wrong. Please put people and nature before money.
Mr. Eels. Good evening. I don't have my notes on me, unfortunately. Most of what I wanted to say has already been said. However, I would like to reiterate the importance of health and well-being and mental health in particular, and how well such a wonderful space can make such a difference. I would particularly like to pick up on the point that has been touched on, a densely populated area as the North Kettering is. It's so readily available and accessible without the need to get into a vehicle. And I fear that if we lose that, all we're doing is encouraging people to get into the car and seek these green spaces. A gentleman discussed Stanley Place and how wonderful that is, which is predominantly only accessible by vehicle. This wonderful area that we have is accessible to so many people without the need to get into a vehicle. And if you look at the demographic of the north, of the area of North Kettering, it's predominantly 1 and 2 car households. This area gives us the opportunity to stay out of those vehicles. And the loss of it is only encouraging people back into those vehicles to seek it. And other than everything that everybody else has said, which I agree with, I think that's the proximity of it, I think is cannot be underestimated. The fact that you don't have to get into a vehicle to access this area. I don't think that can be underestimated. So for that, I thank you for your time this evening. Dr. Heath.
Well, we've just heard that the developers acknowledged their proposed development would release and contribute to the climate crisis a massive, at least 16 million tonnes of CO2. Increased traffic in the area will also obviously hugely increase air pollution. As a research scientist for many years on liver and cardiovascular health, I've become increasingly concerned about the impacts of climate crisis. Air pollution from fossil fuels is associated with heart disease, diabetes, not to mention stroke, dementia, neurodevelopment disorders, particularly in children, stillbirths and other negative pregnancy outcomes. Extreme weather as a result of climate change is and will further lead to pandemics, as we've heard, contamination of water supplies, increasing risk of infection by, for example, cholera. As mosquitoes and ticks increase their range, malaria, Zika virus, and Lyme's disease will spread. Cases of tropical disease like dengue fever have risen 30-fold in the last 50 years. Already a dengue-carrying species is now present in new areas in northern and southern Spain. Its range has increased from 35 degrees latitude to 40 and will increase further. And a mosquito that can transmit Japanese encephalitis has been located around the Black Sea. My nieces and nephews are very dear to me. And many years ago, I became very worried about what kind of lives they might have to look forward to. I got involved with the local environmental groups. We did mostly postcard petitions using a pasting table as a stall in town centres or fairs and festivals, often dressed as an orangutan or a bee or something. I've marched and waved banners. I've stood as a local, done petitions. I've stood as a local Green Party council candidate several times. And sometimes it has felt like we were getting somewhere. However, emissions are still breaking records every year. In fact, in the words of the United Nations Secretary General, we are headed for disaster. This is, right now, this is code red for humanity. We only have a brief and rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable future. Sir David Attenborough has told us all that the collapse of civilization is on the horizon. Recent reports suggest that this could be in less than 20 years. Anybody who's looked at the evidence knows that we are facing a future of rapidly increasing risk, instability and unpredictability. Fresh water, fertile soils, forests and wild animals are disappearing before our very eyes. The UK is one of the world's most nature-depleted countries already. Saving Weekley Woods is one way that the council can address this and express that it is taking responsibility to keep the public safe by showing commitment to its corporate plan to make Kettering Town sustainable. Thank you.
Is there anyone that I've missed? Your name is Joe Baird. Right.
Good evening, Inspector. In 2014, I worked at Kettering family. When we moved there after a little exploration, discovered the Woods and Meadow. It was an area that since taken by magic. At the time I was completing a degree in filmmaking. I shot a film around the area, and yeah, it was just something that since inspired by. In 2017, I started working on in Rowan at Cherry Hill Road, which is the small set of offices right next to the Meadow. And I was incredibly fortunate literally every lunchtime to be able to go out and walk around different routes, take around there. As development started in the 5 years I was in that role, the number of loops and pathways you could take reduced drastically, and be out there lunchtime after lunchtime, seeing the developments take place and then seeing fences go up. I now no longer work from home, but from where I live on Kings Avenue in Kettering is a very short walk to get to the woods. And it's absolutely fantastic way to get 10,000 steps a day. I think the natural beauty of the area and benefits of it has on your mental health and exercise to get out from that space. It's been stated by several other people tonight, and I think it cannot be overstated. I think that's my own subjective or personal experience. I think that when we consider the bigger picture, as you also have from other people tonight, UK is one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. We're in the bottom 10 countries for biodiversity. In the last 50 years, over 30 million birds have disappeared from our skies. And it's also had since the 1940s, 97% of our wildflower meadows have also disappeared. There's just 7% of native woodlands who are in good condition for nature. And yeah, a quarter of our landmarks are at risk of extinction. Now, I know that these big numbers are beyond the purview of this immediate discussion and conversation, but it's just incredibly important context which shows why it's so vital to protect what we have. I think when there's so much emotional and kind of physical attachment to the places, as everyone speaking here tonight has shared, it doubles in value. We're at a moment in human history where we need to be planting more woodlands. We need to be buffering the woodland that we have, and basically protecting various fragments of woodland. This proposed development is really just another kind of spring in the opposite direction from that. I think the important thing is the decisions that are made in relation to this woodland, again, that people said, it's going to affect generations after us. After everyone in this room is there, there will either be a woodland, a meadowland there, or there'll be the path to the warehouse. But yeah, onto the need of the warehouse. Again, there's a question of if the space is actually needed. I did a very quick search earlier on the site, and there are just on one place I found 16 industrial unit or warehouse listings for rent in and around the immediate Kettering area, with an average size of 159,000 square foot. We've heard about the jobs argument doesn't really hold water. And I think that without being grants, when we consider that it was one of Britain's richest landowners, it's probably not going to be the most important sale in 1910. So I think we really do, the way to summarise my argument is that Kettering doesn't need more warehouses. The people in the town, inarguably, need green space and natural nature that Meadows and Woodlands provides. And but more nature in the UK needs all the green space we can get. So purely from my point of view, I think there's not really a rational argument for this development. And I hope that you might agree in September.
Well, thank you everyone for all your contributions. Not only have the participants in the inquiry during the day given me an awful lot to think about, all your contributions this evening have added to that. I think the stress that's going to generate is I'm going to need a walk in the woods myself.
Do it.
Which I will be doing tomorrow. So thank you all very much for your attendance and thank you for your patience, particularly with the vagaries of the sound system. But that's beyond my control. So thank you very much and have a safe journey home.